When you bring new ideas into your classroom, I want you to think about this saying, and it goes like this: fast is slow and slow is fast. That is such a good quote. Let me give it to you one more time. Fast is slow and slow is fast.
So what is fast?
I believe the saying comes from the Navy SEALs. And so they use that saying when they're training and learning new things. And so if it's good for the Navy SEALs, well, heck, it is good enough for me. So how do you apply that to your classroom? Well, that is what this video is about. I swear as teachers, we always have something new coming our way. Maybe it's coming from the state or maybe from the district or the school. I mean, you name it. I mean, we have a new curriculum, new pacing, collaboration, blah, 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 blah. There's so many new things always thrown at us. The reality is this: if we chase every new idea that comes down to us through the pipeline, we're never going to make any progress. So what do? Well, that is where that saying comes in. Fast is slow. Things are coming at us all the time to adopt and do this and that. We just need to slow it down and just take one thing at one time and just start implementing into our classroom really slow. All right. And then slow is fast, because if that thing works in conjunction with what we're already doing, then what you're going to see is you will see progress going forward. Now, if this job is truly your career and this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life, you got time to bring things in slowly. You got time to work it into what you're already doing. You should be thinking your career as a marathon, not as a sprint. Hey, true story here, and let me tell you this, that one of the biggest achievements of my life is I ran a marathon. I walked a marathon. That was one of probably the biggest things I've ever did where I really pushed myself. But I remember on this marathon, we're at the beginning line and they go, and next thing we all start running, right? We all start running. And as we're running, you know, the pack starts to separate and as people start to form. I'm staying with the pack. I'm doing a good job. I'm kind of pumped up. You got adrenaline going, everything else. And I notice that there's this one guy that starts falling behind, and he starts falling behind quite a bit, actually. Now, the reason he's falling behind is understandable. It's because he has a hurt leg. He actually just did the marathon with a hurt leg. I think it was some sort of disformity. So when he ran, he basically would run and had to kind of drag his other leg, you know, and so forth. And I remember thinking to myself, man, that poor guy, I can't believe he's actually doing this. He's just going real slow, right? But as the time goes on, and I want to stress, it was a marathon and I was nowhere close to the front, because the time goes on, my pace starts slowing and everything else, and everybody starts pulling in front of me and, you know, everything. But as I kept going, I think it was like about an hour into it, I look behind me and I see this guy, the one at the very beginning that was so far behind. I look at him, I see him, and he's kind of far in the distance, but I see him coming up toward me, kind of making his way. He's still quite a bit of ways out there. But as I keep going, I'm getting a little more tired, a little more worn. I'm stopping for a second, slowing down, but he keeps going. He just keeps going. He just keeps going. And probably about halfway into the race, I was just out of gas. I was just worn out. And my wife's trying to encourage me to keep going. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And here comes this guy, just slow pace as can be. He laps me. He passes me up, and he just keeps going. And so I never caught up with him. But every time I think about a race or doing something, I keep him in mind, because it goes back to that saying, right? It goes back to what we just talked about, is that fast is slow and slow is fast. I started out fast. I thought I had it great and everything else, and he just started out slow. But the truth is, if this is a marathon, you need to pace yourself. If your career is a long-term thing, you need to pace yourself. You need to be like that guy and just keep plugging away a little at a time. So what does it look like in your classroom? Here's what it looks like. Keep doing what you're doing. Now, I'm not sure how long you've been teaching for, but here's the secret, is each year you get a little bit better. Each year you try something, you see how it works. Eventually you find a cadence, a rhythm of how your classroom is going to be. And then suddenly, if you take something new, just throw it in there, it can mess up everything. So you stick with what you're doing, your cadence, your rhythm, you stick with it. And then if something new comes down the thing, I'll give you an example. Been teaching 20 years, and here's things that have been thrown at us. They want us to do DBQs. All right, document-based questions. All right. Another thing they threw in, and so for a year or two, that's one thing they really want us to focus on. And then next thing you know, year 3 and 4, they said, no, actually, let's focus on Socratic seminar, where students are talking. I was, well, all right. So then year, 3 and 4, Socratic seminar, and they post in the back, said, well, actually, let's focus on more on our writing. And so then the next 2 or 3 years, we're focused on writing, and then the next year. And so if I would have changed everything, I would have been changing my whole entire routine, pacing, curriculum, all of this stuff, all my lessons every 2 years, and I never would have got anywhere. So you find out what's working for you currently. Find out what's working for you currently, stick with it, but then slowly introduce something into it. So if the school wants you to work on DBQs, don't make that everything revolve around that. You just slowly incorporate that into what you're currently doing. Get a feel for it. See if you like it. See if students like it. And more importantly, see if it's something you want to do long term. Because if it's not, I don't care what the district says, if it's not, do not pour too much energy into it. So when you have these new ideas coming at you, bring them in slowly. And if they are worth anything and they are meshing with what you do, what you're going to see is once you bring them in slowly, you're going to be able to do it right. You're going to do it the way you need to do it, incorporate your class, and before you know it, you're going to see results faster than anybody else.